RGB, powerful bass, crispy treble, 70 hours of battery life, all for $130. If those things sound good to you, then you've got to check out the Corsair Void Wireless V2. This is a direct upgrade from the original Void, and it's basically better in every way. The Void V2 works on PC, PS5, and the Switch. I assume Switch 2, but I don't have one yet. It's wireless only, and it uses a 2.4 gigahertz USB-A dongle. It also has Bluetooth. This is a toggle, not simultaneous. The battery life is stated to be up to 70 hours using the 2.4 gigahertz wireless and up to 130 on Bluetooth. I last charged this 2 weeks ago, and after using a combination of Bluetooth and 2.4 gigahertz, it's at about 60%. There's some good and bad with the controls. The power button is a Bluetooth toggle, that's fine. The tactile button is for the Bluetooth media controls, also fine, but this scroll wheel button, short pressing mutes and unmutes the mic, which I don't know why they wasted the function on that when it's already a flip up to mute mic. You have to long press then let go to change equalizer presets. And unfortunately, the EQs in the iCUE software do not save to the device itself. If you use this device on Bluetooth or console immediately after, it will swap back to the 4 basic presets. So for the headphone audio, first I'm going to talk about what I actually hear with my own ears in games, music, general use. Then I'm going to supplement that with some headphone measurements that I took. This has 50mm drivers, but Corsair does not specify what kind. For what I hear, the Void 2 leans heavily into the V-shaped sound that is elevated and satisfying bass, but also prominent and frankly harsh upper mids and treble. The mids and lower mids seem pretty vacant, so you don't get an overall thickness to the sound. Also, there's very little sub bass potential even with equalization, so while the low end can get some rumble, it's missing that really deep boom. These make the original Void sound more muffled, as these have way cleaner bass and better sound separation as well. I had to drop the 3 kilohertz and above range to really enjoy these for single player games and music, and when I did, they were excellent. That's really what this headset is best at: immersive experiences. Silent Hill 2 Remake has some amazing ambience when it comes to the wind or just the booming bass effects when you're in certain areas. The Void V2 handles that way better than almost any headset I've used at this price range. Now, it can't match up to the Astro A40 and Drop Plus EPOS PC38X, but both of those are getting really difficult to find new these days. Out the box, the boost in the upper mid-range and treble ensures footsteps and subtle sound cues don't get overpowered by the bass, but it comes at the cost of weapon fire being very jarring. Also, glass shattering is brutal. Not as bad as the HyperX Cloud 2, but not pleasant either. For competitive FPS games, it's fine. Nothing to complain about, but nothing exceptional. There is distinct separation between explosions, footsteps, and reloads. The soundstage isn't very wide, and the ear cushions have basically zero noise isolation. This also comes with a license for Dolby Atmos for Windows. You don't have to activate it, just once you plug in the dongle, the Dolby Access app will recognize it. The sound virtualizer is basically useless for competitive games, but just for hearing louder, fuller, and more reverberating environmental sounds like engines and wind, it's super fun, and the sound signature of the Void V2 works extremely well with it. Now, here are some frequency response measurements that I took. Even though my rig is not industry standard, I still find it extremely useful for not just giving you a visual representation of what's going on with the sound, but it's also very useful for comparing different devices as long as they're measured on that same exact rig. So this is what the Void V2 sounds like if you're able to get a good seal around your ears. Now, I'll talk about why that's so important in a little bit, but this is where you see a little bit of that elevated sub bass in comparison to the mid range, especially. This goes all the way up to the 300 hertz range, then it starts to dip, and you don't really have that like dip in the sub bass that I was talking about, where it's like, oh, I feel like the bass by itself is good, but under there it's not very prominent. I'll talk about why in a little bit. And then you get this boost up here in the upper mids, so not quite as much of a V as I hear. This is a little bit easier to read if I average these out, and it's also easier to compare to other devices. Now, this is when I first measured these. This is with the pink line. This is when you don't get a great seal. Now, the material combined with the lack of the clamping force and just the shape of the headset itself, it makes it so it's very easy to not get a perfect seal. And then that's where you're going to get that really steep drop in the sub bass, and some of those really deep booming sounds you're not going to hear as much as the bass once you get past like 60 hertz. Honestly, that pink line is closer to what I actually heard when I was using this most of the time. Now let's compare this to some other devices because I find this is a lot more useful if you actually have other devices as a reference point. The Astro A50X, this is the red. This is my favorite gaming headset overall right now. And then the MDR 7506, which is considered an industry standard studio monitor headphones. When comparing this, it's important to not so much look at is any of the individual points of the line higher than another one. It's more looking at the overall trend of the graph. So, for example, if you've ever listened to the MDR 7506, you know this looks about right, where it does have some sub bass and bass, but it starts to really go up from the lower mids and the really prominent upper mids in the present. It's for me, I find it a bit jarring. Whereas I find the Astro A50X, a lot of people say that it's a dark device, but it's really darker in the sense that if you listen to a lot of stuff like this, the MDR 7506, then you'll have something that this has a little bit more bass than everything else, a little bit more sub bass. This is why I like the sub bass of the A50X a lot, but it's relatively even and balanced. I found it to be a pretty balanced device, but if you're coming from something like the MDR 7506, then it is going to sound quite dark to you. Now, in comparison to the Void V2 in particular, the mid-range, the vocals you're going to hear, that's definitely going to be way weaker in the Void V2. It's not as represented as well as it is in the A50X and definitely not in the 7506, but we still get this boost in the upper mid-range above the A50X. So for me, A50X, way more natural sound, way more balanced sound. So I'd say the main takeaways from these graphs are make sure that you're getting a really good seal if you can with the Void V2, if you really want that sub bass to actually be as prominent as it should be. And this is a lot more spiky when it comes to the upper mids and dipping the mid range when it comes to something more balanced like the Astro A50X, but it doesn't get nearly as spiky in the mids and upper mids as something like the Sony MDR 7506. Now, the microphone on the Void V2 has got to be bottom five in terms of gaming headset mics. It has a very narrow frequency range of 100 hertz to 8 kilohertz. In contrast, one of the best microphones on the market, also similar price range, is the Logitech G522 that has a frequency range of 70 hertz to 20 kilohertz, and the Astro A50X, which I do find to be the best, is basically tied with the Logitech G522 that has 60 hertz to 20 kilohertz. Now, this is unfortunate because the Corsair HS80 had one of the best microphones on the market. Actually, when it came out, it was the best gaming headset microphone. With the Void V2, they tried to fix the issues that the original Void's mic had. So switching to the original Void, this mic is way too quiet, even with the 10 decibel mic boost that I added in the iCUE software. The background noise rejection on this is minimal, and the cheap windscreen falls off and actually tears pretty easily as well. It just doesn't stick onto this. With the Voice V2, the microphone is a lot louder. You don't need the software. The background noise rejection, they went all in with that. That seems to be the reason that this microphone, one of the reasons that it sounds so bad, is that they put a lot of effort into eliminating background sounds. Keyboard typing really quieted down. The PC fan, you probably can't hear it at all. Cars are rushing by outside, probably can't hear those. But it does make the sound overall sound very metallic and robotic. It sounds a lot like the Logitech G Pro X2. We just get this really compressed sound that's not very good. Now, the Void V2 is compatible with Corsair's iCUE software, and you can change different effects in here, the lighting and the key assignments. You need an NVIDIA graphics card to actually use NVIDIA Broadcast with it. It might be why they're relying on that for the noise cancellation. You can change different EQ presets. I've made my own, some really bassy ones, and there's the ones that are default that are relatively conservative, but they're decent. If you have the microphone on, you can slide up or down the mic volume, and then same with the side tone. The lighting effects, gotta say they're pretty limited. I've tried a few different ones that are here, and there's only two lighting zones at this light strip. It's not that big. So there's really just not that much cool stuff that you can do with this device, but the headset itself is all plastic, including the yokes, which used to be aluminum on the original Void. However, this does cut down on the weight, which is great. It's now 297 grams instead of the original Void's 366, the wired Void at least. The V2 retains its 90-degree swivel, and the height is adjustable. The padding is mesh and the ear cups are very large. The cushion inside isn't very thick or soft, but it doesn't trap in much heat. However, the sub bass would probably be a lot better if this was pleather. This also causes pressure around my ears after about an hour, so I do have to give them a rest after that. I'd give these a C in comfort. So for my verdict, the Void V2 is way better than the original Void. It's a jack of all trades, but it doesn't actually excel at much. Long story short, get this if you're directly upgrading from the Void 1 or if you want something under $150 that's wireless and has good bass. This is the best I found that ticks both of those boxes. If you got a little bit more to spend and you're not as picky about the bass, the HyperX Cloud 3S wireless is an excellent pick.